Hey everyone, Sean Scoffield here from Rezo, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today I'm joined by Jet Xavier. Hey Jet, how are you?
Hey, Sean, how you going, mate? Last day, tip number 5.
Tip number 5. So for those people that haven't been joining us over the previous days, Jet and I caught up the other week. Now Jet is he's known as a high performance guy. He coaches and trains and works with the leaders, the teams, and businesses that want to take their business to the next level. He knows so much information. I've really enjoyed the last 4 days of just hearing his insights about what we're putting together, which is the top 5 tips that agents can adopt, adapt, and use to help them better navigate this changing market that we're currently seeing in Australia, this downturn market. But I guess that depends if you got a fixed mindset or an open mindset or a growth mindset.
You're above or below the line, or you're adapting, or you're in fight or flow.
That's it. Now, for people who have been following us, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. If you don't, then go back and check out the other 4 episodes. But today we're on day 5. It's our last day. Tip number 5, Jet's going to share with us today. So Jet, what's tip number 5 and why is it important?
So you could call this the brawling mindset, but I think the better way to shape it is the assertive mindset. I think moving into a changing market, I think the ability to lean into conflict is going to be a crucial skill set. And what I mean by that is the ability to have the hard conversations, which are happening already. Yeah. If I think about experienced agents that I coach, they have the ability to have the hard conversations up front, so they don't get caught in a mess or a web of conversations at the back end when things are falling apart, as opposed to someone that might be a little bit more inexperienced. They sort of wait till the car crashes and then they sort of try and figure out the solution. And by that stage, it's a lot harder to have a hard conversation, and it's a lot harder to lean into conflict and crisis at that moment, because your level of doubt about yourself and your capability of handling that situation is high. And, sure, no one likes conflicts. No one likes getting into a difficult conversation, but that's real estate. Real estate is a series of hard conversations at time, and there's going to be some really hard well, there already is, but there's going to be some more hard conversations coming their way.
Why do you think that people try to avoid conflict? What is it is it the fear of rejection, the fear of self-doubt? What is it that you think's underpinning that, or not creating that safe environment for people to feel that they can just talk openly about things?
It's the concern about what people are going to think about them. That's at the end of the day. There's a great study, I think it was 500,000 sales type organizations around call reluctance. And basically they found that the number one reason people had call reluctance was they didn't want to put themselves out there for fear of being judged. And if you think about conflict, it's the same sort of thing. I don't want to have a hard conversation with you, one that's going to be difficult, and it's a skill to do that anyway. But 2, it could backfire on me. You could judge me. You could feel unhappy with me. And, let's face it, we all live in la la land where we expect everything just to be roses and chocolates and champagne. And we try and keep up that nicety image going. And we don't realize that, there are times where we have to be open, upfront, authentic, and lean into that conflict, because that's the truth of the situation. That's the authentic nature of what's going on, particularly in real estate, around when you should sell, when you shouldn't, how much for, dropping the price, those types of things. So people don't want to be judged. They don't want other people to think bad about them.
Yeah, especially when you have so much laying on the line, right? If your income is dependent on it, try to position yourself in a safe environment as best you can. There's a great book I remember reading, Crucial Conversations, and they offered a pretty good framework in creating that environment. And I know you do a lot of coaching with your real estate agents, as you said as well, but it can be a real crippling thing. I remember I was managing a sales performer that was capable, experienced, and for some reason or other, they adopted this fear about how they're going to be perceived. And it got so hard that they did the call cycle, They got in their car, they put on the seatbelt, they drove to the places that they needed to be and didn't get out of the car. And they're doing
Yeah.
10 visits a day, but not getting out of the car. That fear
Yeah.
just became so much for them, that fear of rejection or being judged or how they're going to be perceived. It can be a real
Yep.
thing.
Well, it is a real thing. That's why you've got 10% of the industry that are doing really, really well, and the rest are making 50 grand a year, or
Yeah.
thereabouts. It's not a lucrative real estate career to get into when you look at those sorts of numbers. And why? Because the people in that 10% are loosely sort of pulled that out of nowhere, but the people at the top have the ability to, what I teach my guys is not to care sometimes. That's okay.
Not to overly care.
If you're worried about, John McGrath said it a long time ago. I heard, care, but don't care too much.
Yeah.
And I think, when you're worried about pleasing people, the vendor or the buyer or whatever, you're going to cross that line of compromise, and you're going to not step up into a person that says, no, I'm not worried about what you think at the end of the day, because I think this is the right decision. I'm confident in what needs to happen here, and I'm going to step into conflict if it's required to put that point across, because I know that's the right thing from a professional point of view, as opposed to appeasing someone else and worried about what they're going to think. That's a different conversation. So the hard conversations and that leaning into conflict, and I encourage people to do conflict resolution courses or assertiveness courses, especially if they're new in real estate, because that helps bulletproof them to that conflict when it comes.
Yeah. And there's a difference between assertiveness and aggression that I think people really need to understand. I remember one of the greatest leaders, John Freeman. I'll give him a shout out on this one. When I first joined the organization we're in, he said, in this business, we're never afraid to turn over the rocks and have a look at the squiggly things underneath it and talk about it. Nothing bad comes from that. We may disagree. We may not, at times we might feel like we need to go separate ways, but we must have that conversation because only good comes from it. Whereas if we avoid it, that's when the bad things happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, arm yourself with some good conflict resolution skills, like good active listening, which is really important, empathy as well. But lean into it, don't walk away from it.
Yeah, that's great tip. All right, Jet, that's a fantastic one for us to finish on day 5 with. If anybody wants to work with you, consult with you, or hear more about your programs or have a free consultation with you, how can they find you?
Jet Xavier.com. Simply go there and fill out the details, and I'd love to have a chat.
Excellent. For those that have been following us on our journey over the last 5 days, thanks very much for hanging in there with us. If you're an agent and you're experiencing, I guess a little bit of unease or anxiety, make sure you look after yourselves and get people that love and support you around you and hold them nice and close. And we really sincerely hope that these 5 tips have helped you perhaps perceive this situation a little bit differently than what you otherwise might have. All right. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. All the best. Bye.
Thanks. Cheers.